it was the first time that the U.S. Treasury Secretary has really given a fulsome speech on digital assets. I think in terms of where she falls, I think at times, she used two words throughout. One was pragmatic and one was transformative. And I think at times she sort of moved between these sort of concepts that obviously we want to approach the digital asset space, the cryptocurrency space, very carefully and thoughtfully. But at the same time, she acknowledged over and over again sort of the transformative power of this technology. Really throughout the speech, she attempted to sort of thread the needle, right, between those who believe that sort of technology should run wild, that it should sort of be allowed to live and breathe and move and grow without sort of government oversight, with sort of people who are sort of much more skeptical of cryptocurrency and sort of call for a much more aggressive regulatory approach. So she really sort of tried to thread the needle sort of between those things, but really built off of President Biden's executive order from about a month or so ago that obviously sort of took on the challenges and the risks associated with cryptocurrency, whether they're stable coins and systemic risks or anti-money laundering risks. But then she also sort of talked about, as President Biden did, the need for U.S. leadership in the space, which is really sort of a real move forward towards sort of this adoption or clear regulatory frameworks for cryptocurrency.
It's a really interesting point there. And I heard Kathy Wood speaking yesterday to one of our U.S. colleagues about Yellen's speech, and she made the assertion that, perhaps Gary Gensler is making the rounds in Washington, somebody who understands crypto. He's done a huge amount of work in it, and maybe his understanding is leading some of these other officials in Washington to take a more constructive approach and make them more confident to think about the U.S. taking on a leadership role. What would your take be on that?
Yeah, I think that's right to some extent. Look, I spent about 11 years at the U.S. Department of Justice. I spent about 2 years at the U.S. Treasury Department. And I can tell you that there are true subject matter experts, on digital assets throughout those places like, Treasury's FinCEN, which is the anti-money laundering regulator, and OFAC, which is the sanctions regulator. In particular, there are career officials there who have been thinking about these issues for years. And I think that they're closely advising the secretary at this point on these issues. And honestly, I thought yesterday's speech was incredibly thoughtful and really sort of built on the executive order, but in really a much more granular way, where she's talking about sort of, look, we're not entirely sure whether the central bank in the United States should issue a digital dollar, a central bank digital currency, but she agreed with sort of the president's urgency to move it forward. But she acknowledged that this is not something that takes a couple months, that it's potentially something that could take years. But really, in terms of the expertise, when I read the speech, I could certainly tell that it was informed by true subject matter expertise in these areas.